Bonds of Agony is one of the new cards, see what I did there, out of Part the Mistveil. And I'm calling it right now, this card is going to put some players on full tilt. So just a fun little flashback there of a video that I shot headed into Part the Mistveil's release about Bonds of Agony. And as many of you are aware, earlier this week in the scheduled banned and restricted announcement, amongst some other things, Bonds of Agony was hit and banned from Classic Constructed. Now, first off, I think this was a really smart ban. I really like the choice here, but there's obviously no denying that it does impact Assassins. However, I do think that for many of us Assassin players, this may actually end up being a blessing in disguise. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in here on your Flesh and Blood Friday. Hope everything is going well for you and you've got mini games planned this weekend to try out the new Banned and Restricted. Now, today, yes, we are talking the Banned and Restricted, but not the announcement itself. I really want to talk more specifically about Bonds of Agony, kind of in a deep dive and why I think that it's quite okay for the Assassins that this card is gone, right? No denying that obviously they're losing a tool, but I think that from a certain point of view, it might actually make the deck more fluid. So let me explain what I mean. Now, the Banned and Restricted announcement itself came out on September 2nd, New Zealand time, so late Monday night for us here in the US. Bonds of Agony banned, Tipple Red and Yellow banned, Plume of Evergrowth banned, Talk a Big Game preemptively banned for some stuff coming up in Super Slam, which is very interesting. I wonder if there's like a, swing for 20 aura type thing or something. I don't know. We will see. And then Germinate is back, which is very interesting. So the impacts of all that, obviously, we've had several days to digest. If this is the first time you're seeing it, that's the info. Most of you, I'm sure, have seen it at this point. So today I do want to talk Bonds of Agony. Now, here's kind of the TLDR. I've always struggled, this is me personally, right? I've always struggled in Bonds sometimes doesn't line up right with what you want to do. And to that end, a lot of times you have to run equipment that you wouldn't normally want to run, or you have to pop that equipment inefficiently. And to that end, I'm specifically talking like Redback Shroud, Black Tech Whisperers, obviously Flick Knives you're going to be running, and that's one reaction for you, assuming you have knives left and all that, right? We get that part of it. But Bonds of Agony, if you have played or activated 3 or more attack reactions as Chane, it gets +3, and when it hits a hero, look at their hand, bam, do the thing, right? But it's those 3 reactions that you have to trigger. Now, a lot of the times, I feel that you have to, you either oops Bonds of Agony, to be fair. Sometimes you just get it and adjust a nick together, and you're like, haha, jackpot, right? But other times, you kind of have to set it up. So I do wonder, or like I said, you have to run kind of that subpar equipment. For example, right, let's look at Redback Shroud. Okay, Redback Shroud, I mean, in most cases, like if you're going to play a longer game or something, you'd probably want to go Tunic, right? Especially because in most decks, you're not really getting the silver that you need to buy back the Shroud or the Black Tech Whisperers, right? So it's basically a one-time use thing. The argument for Shroud over Tunic is that it gives you one more onboard reaction, right? Because you can reaction and then use it to do like a blood spike with Blood Rot. Right, and then all of a sudden you get 2 reactions out of the deal, right? As opposed to Tunic, which isn't a reaction, you get it, right? So now that alone is not, oh, well, good, we can run Tunic or something, because you could have anyway, right? But I think more my point here is, in many cases, you are making some of us, right? Or you may have been forced to within your game, forced to make not necessarily suboptimal, but different decisions in order to make Bonds of Agony work. Because why would you not try and make this card work? Right, and with we'll talk about the impacts and how it is slightly different for the 2 assassin. Well, there's more than that up, specifically Arachne and Mario, or ASC and Mario, right? But I can't help but wonder. I love how this is like the TLDR, and this is certainly not TLDR by any means. But I do wonder if now, instead of having to worry about trying and getting multiple reactions in hand, you can't just play a smoother game. Okay, now again, let's go over to ASC. Right, Slippy, whatever you guys want to call him. Okay, there's no denying that his onboard go again, the ability to lead with this, and then if they overblock, you can just say, okay, that was cute, and then follow up with something else, right? But again, if you've been saving reactions, you may not have something else. Or again, if you drew a whole bunch of reactions, you may not have something else because maybe you're sitting on your Just a Nick and Arsenal or whatever because you're waiting for bonds to come around. Maybe you only got one in your hands, right? Things like that definitely do happen. So now that you can just play your Razor's Edge when you want to, now that you can just play your Just a Nick whenever you pull your Persuasive or whatever blue, right? Like, I think, Double Trouble seems pretty, actually, I think that was in the last Culling Winners list. Actually, I'm pretty certain it was. So fair enough on that one, right? But hopefully you get where I'm going here, is that now just being able to kind of play a smoother, almost more unpredictable thing. Plus, I don't know that folks will be playing, a lot of decks were playing, one or two snags for basically this. That's primarily the reason they were doing it. Let's be honest. And like that could really hurt and just turn you off, right? In terms of like, oh, I did my big thing and now I'm screwed, right? Off of one single card. So, I guess it would still have its hit effect, but, right, they block one equipment or something, right? So I can't help but wonder if things don't just like flat out and get smoothly, right? And, I want to be very clear here. This card is not banned in Blitz, but I will paint the picture by kind of talking about what I talked about in my ASC Blitz video, where I actually wasn't sure in Blitz if Bonds of Agony was worth running because it was hard to make work. And specifically, what I'm excited about going forward are cards like Shred. Okay, Blue Shred, I love that card. Love to play that card. It's enough to kill a temper piece. It's a surprise thing to force an on-hit. Absolutely love the card. But it was one that you sometimes had a hard time playing, specifically with Bonds of Agony, because, like, let's say, again, you throw out your bonds, they're just like, okay, I'm going to lose stuff, and I want to be able to crack back. Just do your thing. You can take whatever card you want from my hand, but then I'll still have 3 cards to come at you, right? That's a play that people do make. But then all of a sudden they're not blocking. Now you're Shred, right? You almost can't afford to play a card like Shred. Or even Tarantula Toxin only works as a -3 on this, assuming that they block. If they don't have a card out blocking, you can't do it, right? So you lose that as well. Whereas if you're not trying to save up and go for the Bonds of Agony thing, I think you're going to be able to trigger cards like that more and not get the pseudo IP for having that. So I think that's really interesting. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, to ASC, to Slippy, him losing this is pretty big, I think. Well, it's obviously impactful. I think it's more impactful to him than Mario, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? But Slippy can play a bunch of other things because he still has to go again, Blue Infect, or, it's just something like that they don't want to, take the one on, as it may be, okay? Now, Mario is interesting because I think maybe he has to change and like go even heavier daggers, which I don't think's necessarily a bad thing, right? That's kind of my theory for Mario players out there. Let me know what you are thinking. Do you think you're going to change kind of the overall approach because of this, or maybe you were running it anyway? I don't know why you wouldn't have run this card somewhere in there anyway, but maybe you weren't trying to get it to hit. Maybe you were just trying to screw with your opponent and force bad decisions, which is completely fair. So that's kind of my overall take here is, it's going to be nice to have a Just a Nick in the arsenal and be able to play it when I want to play it, instead of having to worry about getting all 3 things to line up. And now I can maybe explore other equipment. Like, again, I was making the Blitz analogy, and I wasn't doing this in my class constructed deck, to be fair. But I am running Mask of Perdition in my Blitz deck for that extra onboard reaction specifically for this card. Right now, again, it doesn't change anything in Blitz, but the picture I'm trying to point here is, in many cases, this card was so big that it was forcing you to build around, or maybe not build around it, but build into it or help facilitate it. So I think we got a little bit of a weight lifted there, and we can just kind of play a smoother game, and things almost become a little bit less predictable for your opponent, because now they have to worry. They always had to worry about reactions on everything, to be fair. But now they know you're not, that Arsenal card, sometimes they knew you were saving it for a bonds, right? So if you're like, oh, it's just an Infiltrate, I can block 3. Or maybe Infiltrate's not the best one, but fair enough. Now, last thing to say is, I know that there was a lot of discussion around should Take the Mantle have been chosen. First off, my spoiler card would kill my spoiler card, but what I really like, why I really like this card being chosen over Take the Mantle, is that I think it actually opens up a lot more. I guess to my point, it opens up a lot more like smoother, fun play, like the ability to go pull, like the ability to take the mantle while they're marked, because that's how it works, and go pull like a spider, right? So then all of a sudden now you're at what, 6 with a swapped in, but like they weren't looking at losing anything, like, okay, I'll take it. Well, now they're looking at having a banished card from their hand, right? Or you could even do like this card, right? Art of Desire red, right? Get a red card, draw a card, you do it on your opener, switch into that. I think it's really cool. I think it opens up a lot of very interesting play lines, or maybe it's not play lines. Maybe it's like a little bit more unpredictability in terms of what. I think that's maybe it, right? It's just gonna, you can kind of just play out your hand as it comes. You don't need to do as much setup and pre-planning, which, it is fab. I get it. But anyway, I think this isn't going to be. I think that for many of us who are maybe not pro players, right? But for many of us at our armories, I think this might actually make life easier and more fun. So anyway, let me know what y'all are thinking in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, go Commando.